Alright, what is going on YouTube? ACCM versus the Viper in an English mirror. This is during the streaming event of Age of Empires 4 pre-release, so welcome to Mongolian Heights over here, a map that is pretty much a river separating two players with quite a lot of cliffs out here, and you see most of the gold is around these cliffs. As things stand, just by looking at the map real quickly, both of the big gold piles are spawning on the same side of the river, so this map seems to be heavily favoring the Viper here. Alright, so Viper is playing English on the right side as red, and to the left it is ACCM as blue Vietnamese. Excuse me, well, he's a Vietnamese player, but he's playing the English as well. This is what I wanted to talk about next. That indeed ACCM probably the best Vietnamese player right now in Age of Empires 2, whereas for Viper, of course, he's just Viper. Both players coming from Age of Empires 2. Britons is one of the easiest to learn civilization in Age of Empires 4. It's probably the closest to what you would get to Age of Empires 2 when it comes to playstyle. So players shouldn't have that big of a trouble learning it. I've seen Viper playing a lot of Rus, so it looks like now he's going for some other civilizations. For him, he's already on gold, getting the lumber camp up, and for now he's only on sheep, whereas for ACCM, the approach is very similar. It looks like neither of the players are moving out for hunt just yet. Meanwhile, for ACCM, he has started scouting the base of Viper right at the beginning. He probably wanted to lame some sheep from his opponent, which is definitely possible. Now, this river actually has quite a lot of shorefish in here, so it's possible to move out to the mill and grab some of those if you are daring enough to do so. So, for now, Viper is just 6 on sheep so far, 2 free on wood, and 2 on gold. Now, one of the differences here is that while in Age of Empires 2, the archers cost gold, in Age of Empires 4, that's not the case. So, once you go up to Feudal Age, you will have to spend most of your villagers on food and wood if you're just playing with archers, and the English will definitely want to do that. As Viper is now moving out for the hunt, will probably move out once he has consumed that final sheep out there. There is a massive ridge here on the outside rim, providing Viper with a very well defendable gold mine and an enormous amount of sheep. Holy potatoes, that's like 2, 4, 6, 8, about 10 sheep just on the screen for anyone to grab. ACCM side also has quite a lot of sheep here on the sides. In general, it seems like this map generation seems to spawn most of the sheep to the sides. So, for the time being, it looks like Viper is out for hunt, whereas for ACCM, he's actually going for berries. Now, the berries can work here, but not because the berries are a faster source of food than hunt is. The thing here for ACCM could be that he could add farms early, and that's one of the things that you want to do with Britons. You see, the Britons do get harvest rate increase, a pretty considerable one in fact, from farms inside the influence radius of this mill. So when you're playing the Britons early, you can think about adding farms earlier than other civilizations just because you have such a big gather bonus from them that 2 or 3 farms is actually a very valuable source of food for you. But berries for ACCM don't really make a lot of sense in the long run. It's probably better to go for the hunt, just like Viper did, or just start adding farms. Viper also has a mill on the berries as he's already on the way to Feudal Age with the Council Hall. ACCM, he's also building the Council Hall right now. Looks like he's committing 5 villagers to build, and for Viper, for whatever reason, his age up is not showing up here at the top, but he's also going up with 5 villagers on the Council Hall. The Council Hall, as Viper seems like he managed to collect all those sheep from the right side. He must be happy with that extra food. That is 18 sheep, each carrying 250 food, so that's a solid, how much is that? Like 4,500 food? That's a lot. Anyways, the Council Hall is basically an archer range that works faster. It can only produce longbowmen, so it cannot go for crossbows. But for Britons, this is still the landmark that they age up with, like 95% of the cases, because that allows them to start going for longbows immediately. Viper will need to send a lot more villagers on wood though, because as I said, the archers are very, very wood heavy. For ACCM, he's a little later with the council hall for the time being. Looks like Viper might collect the sheep from ACCM side as well, so he's gonna have a ridiculous amount of sheep to work with, as it looks like Viper will take some shots on the scout of ACCM. The scout, by the way, is self-healing slowly, so that's not gonna be a big deal for ACCM for now. But ACCM sees that his opponent is already on archers, and he's gonna have to add his own. Now, this is the thing I don't like in Age of Empires 4. In Age of Empires 2, if your opponent is going archers and you're also going archers, if you fall behind in archer numbers, you just add a couple of skirmishers to balance things out. That's not really an option in Age of Empires 4. There is just not a unit that's a skirmisher type. In fact, the developers are mostly saying that the archers are sort of more like the skirmishers of AoE2. But nonetheless, the concept is that having more archers means that your opponent has very little chance to sort of counter that, aside from the fact that he could add cavalry, but adding cavalry is expensive, and the archer player could just add a couple of spearmen to defend his archers with. So I feel like the lack of skirmisher unit is actually a problem in Age of Empires 4, because it's pretty hard to beat the archer plus spearman opening. Looks like ACM went for a defensive tower over here. As you see, this is actually the network of castles bonus for the Britons. Let's talk about that in a moment, because this helps ACCM defend against this archer opening. The network of castles means that when enemies are close by, the units close to the tower actually receive a 25% boost to their attack speed. That's actually very, very nice for the Britons. You saw that yellow glowing on the archers of ACCM. That's the reason why he could take a pretty decent fight over there. I also love how ACCM is using his scout, that by the way is still self-healing, to just absorb some of the arrow fire. As Viper is running around, ACCM will try to take the shots. There's another archer coming in here for ACCM, but that's gonna fight a wolf. Viper will still lose his 3 archers over here for the time being. ACCM went for the defensive tower on his hunt. He doesn't have a lot of sheep right now, so he's gonna have to add farms earlier, which obviously will mean that his food income is gonna be better once he establishes that farming eco, but he's gonna consume a lot more wood doing that compared to Viper, who still has a lot of hunt here, but what's even more important is that he has pretty much infinite food from these sheep right now. So Viper is not really forced to add any farms as things stand. So for ACCM, we currently have about 10 archers, exactly 10 archers in fact, whereas for Viper, I only count 4 archers, and now Viper is the one that needs to do something to avoid getting outnumbered very heavily by ACCM's archers, because ACCM has been constantly popping out archers. Same seems to be the case for Viper, but he lost that first group, so he has fallen behind quite a bit in archer numbers. Now, archers are not really good when it comes to sieging buildings, so it's not really a danger for Viper that he loses buildings to this aggression. Like, it's impossible for his archers to set that mill on fire, for example. However, those longbows obviously can pick up villagers or just force idle time, and that's exactly what ACCM wants to go for. He's looping around for Viper. Let's see if he sees those archers coming in. He does not, and now he spots them, and he will take this straight up fight here. There is no tower here for the network of castles bonus, so this is a relatively even fight right now. Looks like ACCM will be the one retreating from this battle. Meanwhile, Viper still has his scout alive. ACCM lost it to Viper's archers, so Viper will just keep scouting around for the time being, and a blacksmith will be added by ACCM for the upgrades. I don't see a blacksmith yet from Viper, so ACCM could get the attack upgrades first compared to Viper. So, looks like we will have 11 archers for Viper, 12 for ACCM, but he is coming in with one of the upgrades. We'll see which. I think Steeled Arrow is probably the better upgrade over here, as he's gonna take a fight before any of those upgrades would come in, so might as well retreat here, and that's exactly what he's gonna do. Let's see, Steeled Arrow or defense upgrade? Looks like he's going for Steeled Arrow. So basically, compared to Age of Empires 2, the armor system in the blacksmith upgrades is actually different. We'll talk about that in a moment once we see this fight ending here. So, in Age of Empires 2, you have melee armor and pierce armor. And you upgrade your unit's armor by classes. You say, okay, I want to upgrade the armor of my cavalry, my infantry, or my archers. And that adds both melee and pierce armor to those units. In Age of Empires 4, it's different. In here, the blacksmith works in a way that you have a melee defense upgrade for all of your units, and a ranged defense upgrade for all of your units. So instead of diversifying by the type of a unit, so cavalry, infantry, archers, it diversifies by type of the armor, so melee armor or pierce armor. Looks like ACCM... no, actually, that's Viper. That is Viper that's going into Castle Age here. Remember that he didn't have to add a lot of farms. He's going up with the King's Palace, which is a second town center for the Britons. One of the reasons why Britons can be so efficient with their economy. They don't need to mine stone to build a second TC relatively early, although Viper is doing that. They can just go and have a second town center by building the H3 landmark, the King's Palace. For ACCM, he's actually pretty far away from Castle Age. That's probably because he simply went for the blacksmith upgrades, and those are pretty expensive. Plus, of course, you have to keep in mind that he didn't have as much sheep as Viper, so he had to spend a lot more villagers on wood so he can drop the farms. Obviously, once Viper runs out of sheep, he's gonna have to invest into those farms as well, but for now, his investment was not as big as ACCM's one. That being said, Viper does not have a blacksmith, so in a straight-up fight, he would lose against ACCM's archers. ACCM could actually deny that town center, but it looks like it's going up. That was very lucky for Viper. If ACCM moves in here a little faster, he could have denied that landmark, which would have been a disaster for Viper. There is apparently the attack upgrade in for Viper as well, and he's going for the first defense upgrade. ACCM is running around trying to see if he can pick off a couple of villagers over here, close to the TC. Looks like he managed to get one or two. Viper, he's pulling all his archers back, and you see that yellow glow is the network of castles bonus. That's something that ACCM needs to be mindful about and just retreat. He could try hiding his army in here in that stealth forest. Let's see if he's gonna do that. It looks like he's just gonna try to take the hill here, but Viper's got veteran archers now. He has gotten the Castle Age upgrade, and that's not good for ACCM. That's very, very bad, in fact, for ACCM. He's gonna lose all his longbows here. Because, yeah, sure enough, he's got the hill, but ACCM, I mean, he doesn't have the Castle Age upgrades. Like, in AoE2 terms, this would be fully upgraded crossbowmen versus archers from Feudal Age. You see, Viper already has the first defense upgrade in a moment, and he's got the veteran archer upgrade, which is even bigger. So ACM will need something, like, for example, horsemen. Looks like he's adding more ranges here, so looks like he's going full feudal, although he could click up any moment. And now that Viper's forces are on this side, ACM is gonna move in from the other side, and one thing that Viper doesn't have is numbers. He only has the council hall to produce units at, but ACCM isn't paying attention, and he runs into Viper's archers. As I said, Viper's got the veteran longbows plus the network of castles bonus. ACCM is gonna get cleaned up here pretty badly once again. He needs something against those archers like horsemen, but he invested so much into the archer ranges that it's gonna be difficult for him now to move on. ACCM, he is going up to H3. His building for this one is also gonna be the King's Palace, so second town center will be in for him as well. But this is why it hurts so much for him that he lost all those numbers. Imagine if he didn't lose all his archers over here, because I don't think that he could have avoided losing these archers, but he could have avoided losing a lot here. And then he would have a pretty decent amount of archers for Castle Age combat. Now, Britons are very, very good at defending, we have seen that, so just as much as Viper had an easy time defending against those longbows with the network of castles bonus, ACCM will have the same thing here. He's got defensive towers out there as well. And remember that Viper is slowly running out of sheep, so he's gonna start adding farms at some point, and that's gonna be pretty heavy on his eco when it comes to like the amount of wood spent on it. Whereas for ACCM, he already has a lot of farming eco, and that's gonna help quite a bit. So, it looks like veteran archer upgrade is not coming in yet for ACCM. He's off from gold, and he's making a dock. Now, a galley here would be a pretty decent idea. to try and control those choke points, because archers would struggle quite badly against that galley out there. Viper will pick off that wolf. Yes, he does. And it looks like ACCM has gotten the campfire upgrade for the longbows. So that allows the longbows to sort of set up a camp and just sort of have a healing trickle while they're actually inside this radius. So he could heal up his longbowman. Now he's got the veteran upgrade coming in, and he's still missing the upgrades over here, as he's making a demo. I don't think the demo is the good choice here. The combat ships have a much more firepower than they have in Age of Empires 2. In AoE2, a single galley wouldn't control a choke point like that. In AoE4, I think a galley can easily do that. That being said, demos are also pretty tanky, so if Viper is not paying attention, he could lose his entire army to a demo shot over here. ACCM already has that demo out, and he is about to move out with his army, but he first needs to push Viper back, because as long as Viper is on this side, it's not gonna happen for ACCM. So, looks like we're still missing the Castle Age upgrades. Viper, he has just started researching both of the Castle Age upgrades for him. Looking at the income per minute, Viper seems to have the better economy over ACCM. We don't have an exact villager counter, so we can just approximate. But ACCM has a lot of farming eco, and as I said, Britain farming is super strong. Let's see if Viper has spotted ACCM's dock. I'm curious about that one. And the answer is no. Viper does not know that ACCM has a dock out there. For now, ACCM is chasing that force. Keep in mind, ACCM is missing upgrades here, so he shouldn't really pursue this. But he had to evacuate his villagers on the right side because Viper is looking for them. Looks like Viper will go all the way up to the north. ACCM seems like he's gonna pursue. But Viper, I mean, he's gonna turn back and fight at some point. He's got the better upgrades. So that's not a good fight for ACCM, I think. He's fighting uphill, it's one thing, but he's fighting against way better upgrades than his opponent. That being said, ACCM might be just happy to sort of grind down Viper's numbers for the time being, and that's gonna be moderately successful for ACCM. He's going to trade off archers against the Viper here, and looks like he's gonna send in some more reinforcements to clean up Viper's force here. Looks like Viper is just now assembling a new force. Instead, Viper has been booming on free town centers. So, what Viper did here was that, okay, I have the map control thanks to the fact that I have the better army. So, if I'm not being attacked by my opponent because he's just too afraid to move out of his base against my superior army, I'm just gonna sit on this lead, add some additional town centers, and boom away with this one. Viper is also switching into knights, which is an amazing unit against archers. So, you see, he's already going for triple stable knights in here. He's getting the attack upgrade for them. He already has the Pierce Armor upgrade as well, because, as I said, you upgrade the Pierce Armor of all of your units. And if ACCM doesn't have a couple of crossbowmen in here, he's gonna be in trouble. If he has crossbows, he could still be fine. And that's the good thing here for him, that it takes little effort from him with the ranges to add a couple of crossbows for armor-piercing power. Here come the archers. Let's see if ACCM is gonna notice this. That's a pretty sizable force of archers coming from Viper. ACCM, I think he sees it. Let's see. Yep, he sees the archers and he's moving away with demo. He's trying to jump on Viper here with that demo ship. Let's see if that's gonna happen. Viper, I'm gonna switch to Viper's POV here. Viper, okay, he spots the demo. This is why I said that I think a standard galley would have been much more beneficial for ACCM. Just because, you know, a standard galley has a lot of firepower here. So, as things stand, Viper is at 121 population, ACCM is at 99. Makes me believe that Viper's eco is a lot better than ACCM's one, because the army numbers seem to be relatively close, probably slightly in the favor of Viper. So, it looks like Viper is also adding ranges himself for some added longbowman production. ACCM is getting closer to the water. Still no additional ships being added. But Viper is gonna spot this. Viper is known for being a patient player, so he wants to force one decisive fight. and that's gonna be with the knights. You see, he's trying to hide the knights even from his opponent. I think he wants to set up a trap. Like, lure these longbows over here, and then bring in the knights from the other side, and indeed, that's the plan. ACCM is gonna be in big trouble here, because those knights are gonna absolutely wreck the longbows. The longbows have the palings ability, though, and that's what ACCM needs to use here. ACCM has forgotten about that. The longbows can use the palings, and now he's going for it to deal with the cavalry. It takes some time to set up the palings, and ACCM started to move away before that happens. Like, one thing that ACCM should have done in this situation is just set up the palings the moment he sees the knights. He's gonna lose the majority of his longbows to the opponent's longbows anyways, but it would have killed some knights that are charging in. At that moment, that's the best thing you can do, and now ACCM needs to add a couple of crossbowmen to deal with the knights. I love how Viper is just pursuing this with a couple of knights over here to grind down ACCM's numbers. ACCM looks like he's adding more longbows, but that's not gonna do anything against knights. The knights have too much armor to deal with. You see 6 pierce armor against a unit that has 10 range, or 10 damage, so barely does anything against those knights. Even with the network of castles bonus, they are just gonna get torn apart by the knights here. ACCM desperately needs crossbowmen to pierce the armor of that heavy cavalry. And now, I feel like Viper is taking over. Viper has just, you know, perfectly sensed this knight switch over here, and now ACCM. I don't see what he could do. I feel like he's falling behind way too much. His 85 population against Viper's 151. Defensive towers are coming in, but now knights are going to start rampaging his eco. And Viper will just boom away with this. So even if ACCM somehow survives, this Viper will just be on like 5 town centers and start booming like crazy. The knights could also burn down houses over here if they really want to, but at this point it's all about the raiding, and that is something that Viper is doing quite rapidly. Quite a few archers go down to the tower and the TC fire here, so it's not perfect from Viper, but he is killing a lot of villagers all around ACCM's base, and the knight flood will just continue. There's way more to come from those British knights, as right now Viper has the food to click up to Imperial, just not the gold. So it looks like ACCM is holding this one for the time being. The house was set on fire, and look at this. Viper doesn't keep his knights over there. He knows the building is on fire, and since there is no villager around to repair, it's gonna go down. Very nice game sense over there as well, not wasting time destroying a building that's already on fire. For Viper, by the way, what he could go for once he gets to Imperial is the Incendiary Arrows upgrade, which would allow the archers as well to set buildings on fire, something that they cannot do right now. Longbows now using palings once again against the knights, but that's not gonna be enough. And this is going to be the biggest fundamental change compared to AoE2, this armor system, which I'll have a separate video on soon, explaining why crossbowman is the unit here. Even crossbowman would be difficult for ACCM because once the knights charge in, the crossbow die in melee pretty easily, but would be easier to do damage to those knights than compared to using longbows. And now Viper is just controlling the majority of the map over here. ACCM is trying to go for Imperial Age. Ooh, going for Berkshire Palace. But what does he want to do? Like, what's the plan? Viper is also going for what will be a castle drop, by the way. He's going up with the Wingard Palace, which would give him a trebuchet as well. That's pretty important. That the Wingard army that the Wingard Palace can train gives a trebuchet to Viper, and that keep is also going to sort of act as a very good forward position, also denying the Council Hall from producing units, even being in the range of those archers. And you see now, the crossbowmen do a lot more damage. These guys have 14 base attacks, so their base attack is also higher, but their rate of fire is slower. But the bigger thing is that they have +6 versus heavy, so against heavy units, like knights, they do 20 damage, or at least 20 base damage minus armor. Anyways, this castle is just firing like crazy, but ACCM is gonna tap out upon seeing the castle over here, and he probably saw Viper reaching Imperial as well with the Wingard Palace, and he just decides to tap out. And with that, Viper takes the win in this British mirror over here. Way better economy, but I think the key moment or the key point was Viper being able to destroy ACCM's army of longbows with the knights. He completely caught ACCM off guard, and that drop in a military is what snowballed the game out of control.